All right, are we ready? So some of you, I mean, we're going to be talking about how to know when these things are ripe. You might not be able to see if you're back too far, but that's up to you. So I'm not sure how well we've succeeded here. I asked the staff to gather a ripe and unripe version of each of these things. In some cases, we don't have a ripe version, or maybe an unripe version, but we have what we have. So where to start? We're talking about various different fruits today and how to know when they're ripe. We have a bunch of things here on the table. Some of them we've harvested here. Honestly, there are more things that we have here on site now than we have on the table. Sorry about that. We didn't really go and harvest everything we probably could have, but hopefully you'll get a sense of this. So I'm not sure where we'll start. You know, we've been talking about coconuts, and again, as I've mentioned, we buy the peeled coconuts. So coconuts are typically here anyway, because there are many varieties of coconuts, but coconuts are typically green or yellow things that are about this big, okay? And this is inside of that, right? This is inside. So if you've ever cut open a coconut and seen there's a bunch of hard flesh and then there's the part inside where the water and flesh is, right? That's this. When you have it this way, this is not impervious to airflow. Air can flow through here, and what that means is this cannot be at room temperature for very long. So if you drink coconut water, it's going to be cold. It's going to be cold not because we want you to drink cold coconut water, but because we have to keep these cold or they go bad. Okay? But this is what it looks like. By the way, on this side, you've got 3 eyes here. And if the flesh inside is soft, one of the eyes will be very soft. So soft you can easily stick something through it. And you can stick something through it and stick a straw in there, or you can stick something through it and pour the water out. But if it's hard, if all 3 of the eyes are hard, the flesh inside is going to be hard. That's one way you can know. Okay? That's kind of good to know. Some of you probably noticed the bananas here. We have, ironically, we don't have any Cavendish bananas on the table right now. We have Cavendish bananas. We actually have about 16 varieties on site currently growing. 2 of them are ornamental, which means there's only seeds inside. There's really nothing edible. But we have, 5 different varieties on the table right now. First of all, this is a plantain. And it's kind of ironic. I bought these from a guy I buy a lot of bananas from and banana plants from at the farmer's market yesterday. And I said to him, "Do you have any ripe plantains?" And he said, "Yeah, right there." Of course, you know, what most people do is they take plantains that look like this, and this is still hard enough you could kill somebody with it, right? By like smacking them on the head if you wanted to. I'm not recommending that, but in order to eat this raw, so what most people do is they cook plantains. Most people think, even here, most people think you can't eat plantains unless they're cooked. And that's because they think it's ripe because it looks like a ripe banana. Okay, it's in the same family, but when it's black, then it's getting ripe.
This is from Tanglewood.
This is one of ours, and it's got to be black. Okay, if it's not black, it's not ready to eat. When it's actually black on the outside, then it gets soft, and then it's really sweet. Because the starch, this is still starchy, that's why it's hard. The starch has to be converted to sugar. When you cook starch, what happens? Breaks it down to sugar. Okay, potatoes, this is why cooked starches are sweet. Corn gets very starchy after it's picked. But if you cook it, it becomes sweet again. This is sweet without cooking. This is perfect. You can eat these as long as they're this color.
How long would it take to write to?
I'm going to take questions later.
I'm sorry?
I'm going to take questions later. These are, honestly, I don't remember what these are called. I was about to say these are date bananas, but I don't think they are. I'm going to peel one though, to get a look at it. Because now people often ask, these 16 different varieties of bananas, do they taste different? Well, yeah, If they tasted the same, they'd be the same, right? I mean, they're different because they contain different nutrients and different combinations of things. So yeah, this is not a date banana. I know that because a date banana is quite yellow, and this one is quite white on the inside. So each banana is different. Usually these little bananas are pretty sweet, but I'm not sure about this one because I don't remember what it is. We have so many, it's hard to keep track of them all, and I'm not an expert on this. But here you can see this one could actually be a little softer still, and here's a green variety of the same thing, right? Obviously, everyone knows this isn't ripe. I hope everyone knows that. I mean, I don't know about you guys. Growing up in the U.S., my mother would buy bananas, and when they were mostly yellow, we would eat them. And they were never nearly as sweet as they should have been. But they never lasted until they were actually ripe. We always ate them before that. This one is actually getting speckled here, but still could be a little softer still. Okay, hello there, Bandita. This is the banana manzana. I just touched the bottom of this. This is banana manzana. Anyone know what manzana means in Spanish?
Apple.
Apple. This is an apple banana. Why is it called an apple banana?
Tastes like an apple.
Tastes a bit like an apple. I mean, it tastes mostly like a banana. Right? It's clear, like if you close your eyes, you wouldn't think you're eating an apple. You'd know you're eating a banana with a little bit of an apple flavor. Okay? These are, they're very sweet. This is about as long as they get usually. They're fat. These are still going to take, probably 3 days to ripen inside. We just cut these, which is why my fingers are now sticky. Because bananas contain a lot of sweet fruits, contain natural latex. And a good thing to know, if you are, I remember the first time I was visiting a friend's farm in Panama, and he would do this. He disappeared. He was giving a tour to myself and some interns. He disappears up into the trees. Like a minute later, he's like way up in the air in this tree. At one point, he brings down a bunch of bananas. And I carry the bananas back to the car, right? When we leave. I'm wearing a brand new shirt, and I've got the bananas tucked up against my chest, the cut end, not realizing that when you cut this was just cut 15 minutes ago. It bleeds latex, and it gets on your clothes, and it never comes off. So I wore that short once. Now, I mean, I probably wore it again for gardening and so forth, but you want to be careful with these bananas. So these are apple bananas. This is another variety, and again, I honestly don't remember what these are called. Okay, but you can see it's a different form, right? It's a different size, different shape. They're all distinctive in various different ways. Okay. I think these might be the Filipinas, but I'm not sure about that. And this is the Cuban Red Banana. Okay, and you can see when they're green, they're almost purple. In fact, in Panama, people routinely call these morado, which means purple. As they turn ripe, they become this orange-red kind of a color. Okay? And again, they taste different than the other bananas. They're distinctive. But I want to save you guys some trouble and some pain. These bananas are terrible. If you ever encounter them, put them in a box, send them here. I'll dispose of them for you. You should never eat these. Okay? I'm teasing. I love these. These are my favorite. I'm just saying send them to me. We've planted a ton of these because I love them. Unfortunately, they're the slowest banana to produce. So we probably have roughly equal numbers of red bananas and apple bananas planted. But we harvest apple bananas on average, probably at least one bunch a week. Is that a reasonable estimate, Gazelle? About a bunch a week. I mean, some weeks there aren't any, some weeks there are 4, right? About a bunch every week. We harvest red bananas on average maybe once every 4 months. Roughly the same number of plants. It's just that the apple bananas produce fruit really quickly and the red bananas really slowly, which is depressing. Okay? Let's see, where do we go next? Here's something some of you may not be familiar with. Anyone familiar with this? Recognize this?
Mamasote?
Say again?
Mamasote?
Palmasote.
Mama, what do you say? Mamasote? Sote? Never mind.
You're just making shit up. I'm on to you. Anybody else? This is a mame sapote.
Mamasote.
And this one is actually probably passed already. So are you have any investment in eating this?
When we just got them, I had.
And how was it?
They were pretty good.
Good. I think this is gone though. So what I'm
It has air pockets.
yeah, it has air pockets, so it's probably no good. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and open it up so you can see. Okay, and we'll get some more soon for those of us that. Now this is something, by the way, we probably wouldn't feed you guys. Not probably, we wouldn't feed you because it's very sweet. Yeah, it's anybody wants to meet me later on for a little drink, we'll share the sapote. This is fermented. That's what happens. But you can get a look at it here. It's this beautiful deep orange color. Sometimes they're light orange, sometimes they're more brown color. It's very sweet fruit. We have a giant mame sapote tree over there, which bears quite a bit of fruit. It's over the fence. There's a fence here that runs down. Those of you in the ranchitos are staying on the other side of the fence, right? We bought that piece of land because it had this tree on it. Oh, not really, but it was a good reason to buy. The seeds of this fruit are amazing. Let's see if I can easily get this out. The seeds are probably sprouted, yeah. Usually by the time this is fermenting, no, maybe not. Yeah. But it's interesting, they're changing a little bit. Usually that doesn't happen when the fruit is actually ready to eat. It's like the seed itself is changing. Usually there's just this beautiful, shiny, dark seed. Anyway, the mame sapote is one of the fruits where the seed is true to the fruit. So if you plant the seed, you get the fruit. Okay? These mangoes are not that way. Again, if you plant the seed of this mango, you will get a mango, but it won't be the same variety. Okay? It's going to be a different variety each time. There's some mango trees where you can plant the seed, and a lot of mangoes where you're going to get something different. And that's one of the reasons why people graft trees. If you want the same variety, you have to graft a tree. You take a branch from a tree that's already producing fruit, you stick it onto the root of an existing, any other mango family member, you wrap it with plastic wrap or something to hold it together, and the two pieces of wood grow together, the living wood. This one is not quite ripe yet. We probably don't have any ripe ones because the people eating them have been eating them all.
That one is right.
This one
It
here?
smells really good.
Okay. It's funny because I picked this up thinking this would be the ripe one, this would be the green
You
one.
got this one.
I bought this one yesterday, right. Yeah, so with mangoes, there's a couple things. This is hard. I mean, that's the first thing I picked this up and said, oh, it's not ripe, it's hard. Okay? It doesn't matter what it smells like. I mean, it's not going to smell like much when it's hard, right? As it ripens, it starts to get soft, and I can easily squeeze this. This one could probably be, it's probably going to be better tomorrow or the next day. But notice it can still have some green on it, okay? Now, had this been allowed to ripen on the tree, it wouldn't have any green on it. But the mango will keep ripening to some degree after you pick it, okay? Not everything does that. But in addition to having some give here, being soft, it should also smell good. This smells like a mango. It smells amazing. This one doesn't smell like much of anything, okay? Now, I think I shared once before, but I'll remind everybody, mangoes. So remember, for those of you that weren't here, I guess a couple weeks ago, trees produce fruit in order to spread their seed, to distribute the seeds into the ground, and they want to protect those seeds by ensuring that the fruit doesn't get eaten until it's ripe. Because when the fruit is ripe, the seed is viable. Before the fruit is ripe, the seed's not ready to actually grow yet, and so the fruit wants to protect it. Unripe mangoes are covered on the outside of the skin. They can have some urushiol. Anyone know what urushiol is? Anyone know what poison ivy is? Poison oak, poison sumac. Okay, those plants have a ruchil. When you touch the leaf, your skin blisters. That will be found on the outside of an unripe mango. Now these have probably been washed, but when people pick mangoes for export, they're always picked too early for export. The people that pick them wear protective clothing, gloves and suits, right? It's hot. I mean, these trees do best at sea level. It's hot. They're in full protective gear so they don't burn their skin from the unripe mangoes. Okay? Anyone know what this is? It's a giant kiwi. Someone said it earlier. This is a papaya. This is one of many varieties of papayas that we have here. And papayas come in quite a range. It was actually in Mexico, what's that? Cancun, years ago. Which, anyone been to Cancun? It's not really Mexico. It's like, it's like a resort town in Mexico. But there's nothing too Mexican about it except that it's in Mexico. It was completely created out of nothing. I mean, it's a beautiful place, and let's build a resort here, right? It didn't evolve organically. You've got all these hotels along the beach. It's very nice. And then there's an area where the Mexicans who work in the hotels, the housekeepers, etc., where they live, a separate little village. And I wandered over there one day, almost 30 years ago, with the woman I was dating at the time, and we walked into this grocery store. Neither one of us spoke any Spanish. And we walk into this grocery store, and there's a fruit that's like this big. It's like this big around, and we had no idea what it is. And through hand signals and very crude Spanish, we got them to cut us and sell us 1/4 of the fruit, which they wrapped up in plastic. We took back to our hotel. We had a little fridge in the hotel. And the next day, we dug into it. And it turned out it was a Mexican papaya. I'm sure there are many varieties of Mexico as there are here. I've never seen a papaya since that was so big. This particular variety tasted a lot like feet. So we each had one bite and threw the rest away. You want to be, papayas can be a little funky. This one was extra funky. The sweetest varieties tend to be the smallest. So in Hawaii, they have the little strawberry papayas. You can get them other places, but I think they originate in Hawaii. And those are the sweetest. We grow those here. We grow probably 6 or 7 different varieties. We don't have so many right now. I don't know if these are from here, but probably not. So with the smaller the variety is, the softer it has to be when it's ripe. With that really big one, it's pretty thick before you get to where you're going to eat, and it's not going to have so much give. With a ripe papaya, this size, what happens, I don't know if you can see that, but with gentle pressure, like I don't have to use my arm, just gentle thumb pressure, I can make a little indentation in it. Okay, if I can't do that all the way around, it's not ready to eat yet. Okay, if it's too hard to do that, it's not ripe yet. This one is a little harder than that. It's not ready. Okay, you would not want to cut and eat this one. If you do, it might burn your mouth a little bit. Again, there's going to be some latex which disappears as the fruit ripens. It's just not going to be a very good experience. And, this is true with all fruits. You want to eat fruit when they're ripe. Now, there are traditions all over the place of people eating unripe fruit, right? In Thailand, they do salads with papayas that aren't ripe. Years ago, I was visiting Puerto Rico. I was, at the time, dating a Puerto Rican woman, and she was actually Nuyorican. She grew up in New York City. She spoke no more Spanish than I did, but her parents had moved back to Puerto Rico, and they only spoke Spanish. And we get there, and her sister is standing there eating this hard green mango, and insisted that it was perfectly fine to eat. It's very difficult to digest unripe fruit. Okay, you want to wait for the fruit to ripen. You don't want to eat it unripe. Okay, here we have a couple of pineapples. Now, it's kind of funny that I hope they're wrong. I asked them to bring me a ripe and an unripe pineapple. With a lot of the fruit we buy here, we can't really go pick everything because we're buying stuff that It's often organic as much as possible, and the farms aren't necessarily nearby. So we order from someone who sends it to us. And we got this. And we'll cut it and see, but it's important to understand. I mean, this is what, there are many varieties of pineapples. So most varieties are going to look something like this when you eat them. Sometimes they're actually green on the outside, but usually not this green. There's a couple other things though. Again, should smell like a pineapple. This smells great. This one doesn't smell like very much. There should be a little bit of give to it. This one, it's pretty hard. The center leaves should easily come out, okay? This one, it's probably not going to be nearly so easy. Okay, that's not ready to eat yet. And unfortunately, pineapples do not ripen after they're picked. Okay, some of you are going to argue with me, I know, because this is going to change color, okay, but it's breaking down. It's not ripening. It's never going to have less acid. It's never going to have more sugar than it does right now. Okay, this one will probably, I don't know what we'll do with it. We'll compost it. I don't think it's going to get eaten. All right, let's go on to oranges. So how many varieties of oranges do you guys know? 3? What are they? Tangerine? That's another fruit.
Blood orange.
Blood orange? Yeah, navel orange, Valencia orange. There's actually quite a few varieties. No, they say mandarin orange. I don't think it's really an orange. I think it's really in the tangerine family. But we have mandarins right here. This one, ready to eat. This one, not so much. Right, this one probably shouldn't have been picked quite yet. It will continue to change color. These, by the way, are picked here, and they're not everyone's cup of tea, but I've had several meals of these. This is the season, by the way. The mandarins have a very short season. We harvest these in late December through January into early February. That's it, maybe 4 to 6 weeks. They're pretty good, and they're picked right on site. We have several other things. We have, let's see if I can remember which one's which. These, if I remember correctly, these are Valencia oranges. So these are the ones that are typically used for making juice. And we picked these as well. We picked all the oranges here. These, we probably have 100 and some trees because this land was part of that orange farm next door before. And so there's still quite a few trees here. In fact, when we bought the strip next door where the sapote tree is, we had probably 125 orange trees. We've taken some out to do other things there. Again, if I remember correctly, I might be mixing these two up, but one of these is the Valencia. I really can't tell without eating them, biting into them. But one of these is what is called, oh shoot, no, I don't remember what it's called. One of these, right behind the kitchen, it's very, very acidic. It's an orange that tastes more like a lime or a lemon. Okay, it's that acidic. It's something you don't really want to eat. We'll use the juice like you would use those juices, lemon or lime juice. And this one is called malagueña. And it's kind of interesting because what does malagueña mean? It's bad something, right?
It's there's a city called Malaga in Spain.
Oh, that's where it comes from?
Probably.
Okay, because mal means bad. I thought bad something. I'm like, malagueña, that's interesting. These are super sweet oranges. We have a few of these trees as well. These are really sweet ones. They're all kind of hard. It's probably not really ideal. It's not the ideal time for them. We picked them just to show you. None of them are really ready to eat. We only have one example of this. Anyone recognize this? This is a guayaba. In English, we call this a guava, right? In Spanish, we call this a guayaba because guava is another fruit. We actually have probably 5 or 6 varieties of guayabas here, and we have 5 or 6 varieties of guavas, but the guavas aren't ready to eat. Now, guava, some of you know, is ice cream bean. Have you heard of that? It's a pod which, the smallest one's this big, the longest ones are like this big, and inside there's a bunch of seeds. They're covered with a little bit of white, sort of cotton candy kind of flesh. Sweet. It'd be hard to make a meal of them. You'd have to open a lot of them to make a meal. This is the guayaba, and these are interesting fruits. This one, I'll pass this around because you can't bruise this because it's so hard. It's not even close to being ready to eat. Again, we picked it just to show you. We have several varieties of these. This is one of the larger varieties that we have, and they smell amazing. The taste is interesting. We don't actually eat a lot of these. And one of the reasons why is there is a fly that likes to lay its eggs on top of this. Remember the fly that went into my arm? Well, it's a different fly, but the flies lay their eggs on this. They go inside, and you open them up, and there's larvae. There's all these little worms crawling around. So when they grow these, what they typically do, and the reason these are kind of expensive, is they bag each one. You'll see a plastic bag over each fruit or 2 or 3 fruits at once. It's very labor intensive, right? We've done that, and they're amazing. So normally what happens is you buy these at the market like this. We harvested this one. You can buy them, but they're always going to be hard, and they're never going to ripen fully because they were picked way too soon. So I don't ever bother to buy these. In fact, I hadn't had a large one here in a long time until we started bagging some of our own and actually allowing them to ripen on the tree, and then they're amazing. But if you want to pass that around, you can smell that.
Sure. For some people, guayabas are difficult to digest. Would you agree?
The question was, the statement was that for some people, guayabas are difficult to digest. Would I agree? I don't know if that's true for some people. I have no trouble digesting them. Maybe some people do. They're a fruit that is covered with, filled with tons of tiny little hard seeds. And I mean, the seeds, if you bite into one, it's like hard. They're like little rocks, which makes it easier to swallow them. You're not really going to chew them up very well. But it may be that the presence of all those seeds makes it hard to digest. And it may be, I don't know what happens in Mexico, but again, here, everyone eats them unripe. That's hard to digest, right? It could just be for that reason, because people are eating them unripe all the time. Okay, say again?
Not in Mexico.
Not in Mexico?
Actually, they get very, very soft.
Yeah.
Very sweet.
Yeah, they should be very soft. Again, we have, I think 5 or 6 varieties. We have the strawberry guava, which is pink inside. Amazing, amazing. But it's just, if you pick them up off the ground, if you look at this one, you'll see little tiny black specks. Sometimes there's little holes that have closed up, and if you see those, there's usually worms inside.
¿A todas las guayabas le pasa lo mismo o solo a esa variedad de...?
No, all of them. Sí, a todos, sí, a todos, sí.
Todas llegan
Sí, siempre llega este mosca, siempre tiene los gusanos.
en cualquier variedad. En cualquier...
All the varieties that I know, we've got 5 or 6 here, it all happens to all of them. Yeah.
In Hawaii, the wild guavas don't have that problem.
No?
They're really fresh.
Okay, Jeff says in Hawaii, the wild guavas don't have the issue, so you can just pick them and eat them. Nice. Yeah, unfortunately here, it's like, you pick one up, you pull it in half, and if it's ripe, almost always has worms and such. Which, I think you've got 2 options, right? Either you eat it with your eyes closed, right? Or you just check first. Because there's the only thing worse than finding a worm in your fruit is finding half a worm. Okay, I thought, here we go. All right, there we go. Who recognizes this? Passion fruit, lilikoi in Hawaii, I think they call this. This is passion fruit, maracuya here in Spanish. This is passion fruit. We grow these. We actually have 2 or 3 different varieties of these. You'll see red ones and purple ones and the yellow ones. And they're different sizes. If you buy these, you want to get a good heavy one, because what's in here, it's a shell with liquid and seeds in it. And this family is pretty much always that way. Passion fruits are pretty tart. How many of you know the flavor of this? These? They're pretty tart. Most people wouldn't eat these by themselves. I like to eat them by themselves if they're ripe enough. Now, if it looks like this, see how this is kind of smooth, unwrinkled, it's going to be very tart. When it's really ripe and ready to eat, it could be more than this, but see how it's starting to get wrinkled here? That's how it should look. The whole thing should get wrinkled. When it's all wrinkled like that, that's when it's really ready to eat. And when it does that, I'll cut the top off, get a spoon, I'll just eat it right out of the shell. I love it. Having said that, I tend to not like some of the, like the mame sapote, most of them are so sweet I like them, but I wouldn't make a meal of them. I mean, they're food because you could make a meal of them, but for me they're so sweet. There's some of the bananas, the date bananas, which I don't have here today. They're another little banana. They're so sweet. Like I don't want to eat a whole bunch of those. It's just too much for me, for my body. I like things that are a little more tart sometimes.
Loren, would you like to cut them open?
We can do that. Yeah, you want to grab a knife and a cutting board, maybe a bowl.
Do you need a cutting board for this?
Knife, well, depends what else I'm going to cut open. I guess not. Yeah, sure. That's a good idea. At least a bowl. So we'll come back to these and these, same family here. Okay, who recognizes this?
I don't even know what it is.
No, really? This is a little tiny melon. Cucumbers are in the melon family. Now, if you've ever thought about that, how many of you have grown cucumbers? Have you grown any melons? Squashes? How do you tell which one's which when they're before they fruit?
It's the same.
They-
Pretty obvious to tell.
Before they fruit. Don't the plants all look pretty much exactly the same?
Yeah.
The plants are almost identical. Okay, same leaves, same very similar flowers. Some of the plants have yellow flowers, some have orange flowers, but they're very similar. These are in the melon family, the cucurbit family, which includes melons, squashes, cucumbers. Cucumbers are interesting because they're one of the few fruits that we actually prefer unripe. This will ripen, but it's not very tasty when it's ripe. It starts to get a bit sour, and no one wants it when it's soft. We want it when it's hard and crisp, okay? So some people have trouble digesting this because of that, right? It's interesting, this little tiny one. But again, there are lots of different varieties. In the US, you tend to see varieties that are going to be like that shape. In Europe, it's much more common to find things that are like this size, but much longer, right? The flavor is going to be pretty similar. I actually prefer the skinnier ones typically, although found out last night if you want to make spaghetti with them, the fat ones are easier, for sure. Okay? Okay, so let's come back to the passion fruit, and I'll cut this open. We didn't get a bowl. So I'm not sure how we're going to, or a spoon. I guess I'm going to get my fingers dirty. Okay? You can see, it's dripping a little bit. Right, this is the passion fruit. Here's the consistency. It's seeds and this flesh and juice can be more or less liquid, but this is pretty pulpy, not so much watery. But again, a bit on the acidic side. Okay? How many of you know what passion flowers look like? Passiflora? Yeah?
I grow them in my greenhouse porch.
They're beautiful flowers. You grow them in the greenhouse. This is the same family. The flowers you grow only produce flowers, right?
No, fruits too. I just don't do lava. I pick up one.
Okay. But there are many varieties of passiflora that don't fruit. This one does. This is a beautiful purple and white flower. The Granada, which is one of the larger, probably the largest member. Now there's another variety grown that's even larger than this. But this is a Granada. Same family. The flower is identical, almost identical, except it's all purple instead of being purple and white. And again, with this one, what I would do is cut the top off here, like this. You don't want to go too far down. This one is, there's a bad part here. Not sure if there's going to be anything useful inside. So all this thick flesh, see how the flesh is thick here? You don't eat that. Again, what you're eating inside is liquid and seeds, but this is rotten. It's all black and dried out. Okay. If this were good, if this were fresh, it would be liquid, like a clear liquid in seeds. But this is sweet, where the passion fruit isn't. And we have one more member of the family here. This is called Grenadier. Now again, some people call this passion fruit, but these are sweet varieties. This is a sweet variety, same family, very similar looking. And again, it's the same thing. It's a little bit different than this, than the passion fruit, because the skin is almost like, well, I'll just show you. Here, I just push through with my thumbnail. You can pull it open, and where the passion fruit, it's thicker, maybe a little harder. This is a little spongier inside, and it's got this little pouch with the seeds in it inside. And if you open that up, what I would do is open it up, loosen the seeds with my finger, and then just sort of suck it back. Okay? Really delicious. Seeds, and flesh. And remember, fruit seeds are typically toxic, but one strategy is to make seeds that we swallow that pass through the body. We don't digest them. They just pass right through the body. Okay? So this is the Grenadier. I'm sorry?
I said, is that similar to a pomegranate?
It's not similar to a pomegranate.
I mean, the little casing for the seeds, it looks like it's similar.
No, it's completely different family, very different consistency. Yeah, it's not related at all.
But pomegranate seeds are the same you swallow.
Yeah, you can swallow pomegranate seeds. They pass through your body unchanged and wind up on the ground. A lot of seeds. I mean, the cucumber. If you eat the tomatoes, peppers. Not so much else here, but a lot of fruits. Strawberries are covered with seeds. A lot of fruits we're intended to swallow the seeds, deposit them on the ground in perfect fertilizer. How many of you recognize this? Star fruit. Why is it called star fruit? Because if you look at it that way, if you cut it into pieces, you get star-shaped sections. And this is a fruit where, again, now there are many varieties. This one is obviously green. We just picked this to show you. And it's actually interesting, if you look at a star fruit tree, they're like big shrubs, really. The leaf looks very much like the fruit, the unripe fruit, which means that the fruit is very hard to see at first glance. You have to look for the unripe fruit. The plant wants to hide them. And when the seeds are viable, the fruit changes color. So now it stands out from the leaves and you can easily see it. Okay? This should have a nice smell. Most star fruits, there are various different varieties, but most of them are pretty tart. Again, most people wouldn't make a meal of these. Some of you might have seen some information that came out recently saying that star fruits contain a toxin. Now, you'd have to eat a lot of it to be a problem. Okay? So, I mean, I've had some meals with star fruit, but normally what I'll do with these is I'll take a couple of ripe star fruit, slice them up, and throw them in a salad. Or use them as a garnish. Like when we do the fruit festival, we'll do some prepared meals at night. I'll put a couple slices in a salad, in a soup, on top of a raw soup, like that. Beautiful stuff. It's tasty, it's nice, it's a little tart. It adds something to the dish. But again, not something most people would eat by itself. Anyone recognize this?
That's a date.
A date? Anybody? Tomatillo? No? It's hard. Doesn't it look like a little green apple?
Yeah.
It's not. It's called a guinda. It's not the same family. It actually tastes a lot like a little green apple. It's tart. It's very similar flesh. I mean, the consistency is pretty much the same. The taste is the same, but this is a tropical fruit. So we don't have any right now. We sometimes have apples that we buy from an organic grower here in Costa Rica. Apples, which require cold weather. And they grow on the highest mountain in Costa Rica, where they get frost. They get snow sometimes on the highest mountain. It's pretty high. I think it's do you think? I'm thinking maybe 4,000 meters, something like that. We're here at about 800 meters, 900 meters, so they're more than 4 times higher than we are. You know, it gets a little chilly here at night sometimes. It gets really cold up there. And you can, now these grow in places that are tropical, but the apples you can only grow in places like that. Okay? Oh, so light green apples. See how this still has a pretty dark green color, right? And on the other side, it's actually getting lighter. And when these are ripe, they actually turn a very pale yellow-green. So if it has this dark green color, it's really not ripe yet. The same, by the way, is true with Granny Smith apples. Okay? If they're like dark green, they're not really ready yet. Okay? They're probably picked too soon, but they really should be much lighter than that. The same is true with most limes. It depends on the variety of lime, and we don't have too many limes here today. We don't have any limes here today. I think we ran out of time. We have probably 4 or 5 varieties of limes on site. One of them looks a bit like this, more like yeah, it's kind of a cross between these two, and it's actually called Limon Lime Mandarina, right, which means Mandarin lime. And I'll tell you a funny story. I was at the big produce market in Panama City 14 years ago or so. And I said, again, I had very little Spanish at the time. So I said to there were 2 old men sitting there, and I said, ¿Qué es esto? What is this? And the guy says, Limon Mandarina. And I heard, Mandarina. And he says, here. And he hands me one. So while these 2 old guys watch with a grin on their face, I peel it, take a piece, and put it in my mouth. They are highly acidic, like super, super acid. It's nothing you'd want to eat. And they were laughing their heads off as I was like, doing that kind of thing. What have we not covered yet? Anyone recognize this? Pera? No? Oh, I stumped everybody. They're not bell peppers. They look a little bit like bell peppers, but they're not. They're, well, yes and no. They're not apples. They're not apples, but they're called water apples. Manzana de agua. Here, at least in Costa Rica, it may be different in Mexico, we have a lot of fruits that have the word apple in the name. We have rose apples and water apples and cashew apples and star apples and apples and all kinds of other things. This is a water apple. It actually does taste a little bit like a pear. It's sweet, but it's subtle. It's nice. I like these. This one is almost ripe. This one's not close yet. It should continue getting a little darker and become softer. So I just bought these yesterday in town. This is the beginning of the season. We had a giant water apple tree which was knocked down in a windstorm a couple of years ago. We would have tons of these by now, or maybe in 2 weeks, had the tree still been there, but they're gone. We've planted more, but we don't have it yet. We might have, we have 2 other varieties, a pink and a white variety, which are much smaller, which I haven't even checked the trees. We might actually have some of those. I think it's still a little early because of the elevation here. It's probably a little early for those. Okay, but that's a water apple. This you guys probably recognize. These are cantaloupes. It's a type of melon. Now this one is not ripe yet, right? See how it's still sort of green? It's still going to be hard. It doesn't smell like much. This one has turned a little bit yellow on the outside. It's going to be a bit soft here. This one's actually not quite ready yet either, but it should be a little bit soft. There should be some give at this end. There's a little bit of give. It's probably going to be better tomorrow. And it's starting to smell really nice. Okay, that's how you know that a cantaloupe is ripe. Anyone recognize this? Jackfruit. No, not a jackfruit. It is similar in appearance to a jackfruit, but it's not a jackfruit. Now, if this were a jackfruit, what would be true about it is that it would be a very small jackfruit. Jackfruits can come in a variety of different sizes, but jackfruit is the largest tree fruit in the world. How much do you weigh now? Yeah, ¿cuánto peso ahora?
52.
52. Okay. There's jackfruit, his size, 50 kilos.
How does it taste?
Jackfruit,
Yeah.
which isn't this. Jackfruit, have you ever had juicy fruit gum? How many of you know juicy fruit gum? Anyone have that?
Like banana chew gum.
Not like banana gum, like juicy fruit gum. Juicy fruit gum is jackfruit flavored. It's actually the flavor of jackfruit. Interesting, yeah. It's hard to describe. You have to taste it. It's amazing. There are many varieties. If everything goes well, I think we have 4 or 5 varieties planted on site, of jackfruit. And we have several more varieties arriving in the next week. Seeds. We'll see what happens. They usually grow easily. We have lots of jackfruit trees here. We're waiting, hopefully good news. One of the 2 pieces of paper we've been waiting for months, it was issued yesterday. We should have the other one in 2 or 3 days, which means we'll buy the land next door. We'll get that loan for the land next door. And in May, when it starts raining, we're probably going to put 50 or 100. I think we've got 400 jackfruit trees ready to plant. So we'll put 100 of them in the ground. This is not a jackfruit, though.
Chirimoya?
It's not a cherimoya.
Like a bread.
This would be a giant cherimoya. It's like
Breadfruit.
it's exactly like a breadfruit. It is a breadfruit. This is a breadfruit. Now, breadfruit, I'm embarrassed to tell you this, after 27 years living on fruit, I learned last year that you can eat breadfruit raw. Breadfruit's another fruit that's usually eaten cooked. And I believed, like a lot of people, that you had to cook it. And then someone said, no, just keep letting it. By the time it's ripe, it's kind of looking a little moldy on the outside, and you're thinking it's passed, but it gets soft, and it's really sweet. It actually tastes a little bit like durian, some people think. I didn't think so, but it's a very sweet fruit.
How is it on the inside?
It's like dark yellow and it's like wet dough.
Yeah, it's kind of a doughy thing. It's a strange consistency. That's probably why they call it. It's got seeds. Probably why they call it breadfruit, because it's got this doughy consistency. And I thought we were going to have some fun with this. We're going to plant 2. We have breadfruit trees here now, and we're going to plant a breadfruit tree here and a breadfruit tree over here in the middle. We're going to plant a peanut butter fruit tree and a raspberry jam fruit tree. We'll have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich grove. Anyway, that's a breadfruit. Anybody recognize this?
Honeydew.
Say again?
Honeydew.
Honeydew melon. Well, maybe in the UK. In the US, a honeydew is something else. It's green, smooth green on the outside and yellow green on the inside. This is called a canary melon here. Actually here, that's a watermelon and everything else is a melon. I swear to you, no matter how many melons there are, they're all just melon here. You have to just tell them melon and then which color you want. But this is a canary melon, and they will get deeper yellow as they ripen. These, I mean, I've found this to be really difficult. Again, I think they're usually picked way too early here, so we're not growing these yet. We've planted some seeds. We've never harvested any here, but when we buy these, we'll buy them, and then we'll wait, and we'll wait, and we've cut some open that were like 2 months old, and they're probably just picked way too soon, never ripen. So it's a little hard. When they're ripe, they're amazing, amazing. Anyone been to Spain? The canary melons in Spain are incredible, incredible, because they know how to pick them.
But do they grow there, like, with the weather?
In Spain? Yeah. Oh yeah. No, southern Spain, they grow lots of melons. Okay, everyone recognizes this, yes? This is a really, really big kiwi. So watermelons, honestly, I don't really know how to tell when they're sweet yet. But I can tell you, especially with a melon like this, what the consistency is going to be like most of the time. So if you hold a melon, it should have a kind of a high-pitched sound, like that. If it has more of a dull thud, the consistency inside is going to be a bit mushy. It's not going to taste, it's not going to feel, it might be sweet, but it's not going to feel very nice. Okay? This one is going to have a really nice consistency. May or may not be sweet. We don't really know that until we cut it open. All right, and I think,
Can you grow watermelon here?
can I do what?
Can you grow watermelon here?
Can you grow watermelon here? Yeah, theoretically, we can grow all these melons here in the dry season because the melons and some other things won't handle all the rain we get in the rainy season. And so if you walk down to, not now, but when you're not fasting, to the big greenhouse down here, we have put heavy metal mesh all the way around. It's a big greenhouse, and we've put heavy metal mesh from the ground up to the roof all the way around it. And we've planted some melons. The idea is to grow them up. It's a vine, so it'll grow up this mesh under the plastic roof where it still gets sunlight, but where we can control how much water it gets. And the idea is to be, and then we actually did, when you go down the path that goes down this side, down toward the bottom, you'll see a structure where there's a hoop of this metal mesh with a plastic roof. Again, that was built to grow melons on. And the idea is we're hoping that we can grow melons here year-round if we grow them under a plastic roof. But you can't grow them, you can only grow them outside in the 5-month dry season.
Without regard to varieties, do you know the number of different fruits?
7? I have no idea.
But a ton.
A ton. Yeah, I mean, it's way more. We should sometime, I should bring out and show you guys a poster I bought at a garden in Florida. It's a poster of tropical fruit from Africa. And some of them you'd recognize, but there are probably half of them you've never seen before, most of you. Never heard of or seen before. There's tons of different fruit all over the place.
Also in Brazil, they have many varieties of fruit.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure. Okay, I think we've covered most of these things. What's that? That's a red pepper. It's not a bell pepper. Bell peppers are shaped like a bell. They're not pointy, right? They come down, they're like a bell, more like a bell. But this is basically the same flavor. And it's interesting because if you go to some of the high-end grocery stores, not so much around here, but like in San Jose, they'll sell both, but the bell peppers will be twice as expensive. Like that's the hoity-toity variety. This tastes the same thing. Again, this should be red and soft. Now they will change color. If you get one and it's still partially green, if you put it on a windowsill, it'll change color, even off the windowsill. It'll often still continue to change color. If it's all green, what does that mean? It's not ripe. Okay, it's going to be hard to digest, not very sweet. Most people get gas, burp with it. I would leave the green peppers alone. Okay, red, yellow, orange, purple is all fine. We have several different varieties of tomatoes here. I'm not sure how many, but these are typical tomatoes you'll find in North America or Europe. You might call them a beefsteak tomato. I don't really know all the varieties. There's many of them. These are large tomatoes. Tomatoes should be somewhat soft. There should be some give. Again, it should smell nice. Some of these are still a little hard. And here we have several other varieties. Okay? This variety will stay yellow. This variety will always have a bit of a purplish tint to it. This variety will always be green. It does not change. It will always have green on it, okay? And it's when it's ripe. And then we have the more common cherry tomatoes, which we picked here, by the way. Okay, these, by the way, it's interesting because people want to grow these. Like a lot of foreigners come here, they're used to eating these. They want to grow these. These like the melons, you cannot grow in the rainy season outside because there's too much water. They'll keep blowing up with water until they just burst, okay, before they're ready to eat. But the cherry tomatoes are perfectly happy outside. Just plant these, right? I like these better anyway. Okay, I think, one thing left. Avocados. These are Hass avocados. These originated in Mexico. The king of the avocado, okay? They grow these now in California. For years, by the way, the California avocado lobby, for years you could not buy a Mexican avocado in the US because the California avocado lobby got the government to pass a law making it illegal to import avocados from Mexico. Now you can find Mexican avocados. But when an avocado is ripe, it should be soft. There should be some give to it. If it's still hard, this one's hard, not ready to eat, do not try to eat this. There are very few things harder to digest than unripe fat. Okay? As this ripens, what happens? The enzymes break the fat down into fatty acids. So a ripe avocado is not so difficult to digest. An unripe avocado, it's not something you want to do. Okay? So we actually have Hass avocados growing here.
And there's another tip too. They are right. They have small button. If it comes off easily,
then it's ready to eat. Yeah. Also, if you look at avocados in the store, you can pop that thing off, and it should be pretty nice light green underneath the color of the flesh. If it's brown, don't buy it. Okay, underneath that thing. Don't let them see you pulling all those things off, but from what you can tell. Some of you may be surprised to hear that there are many varieties of avocados. How many varieties do you know? 2 or 3? There are many. There I don't know how many. There's got to be dozens and maybe more than that. We've probably planted half a dozen or more here now. Mangoes. We've talked about mangoes, right? Mm-hmm. How many of you know how many mangoes there are?
Like 40.
40.
About 40,000.
More than 5,000. There's more than 3,000 in India and Pakistan alone. Some of them probably aren't very common or may not be grown commercially, but there's tons of them. And it may be that it's infinite because, again, you take the seed of most mangoes and plant them, what do you get? A new variety. So I'm not even sure how you'd count. But there are many, many, many varieties of mangoes. So he's asking about how sometimes the avocados, there's some black parts inside. Don't eat that part. Don't eat the part that's bruised. Throw that away.
Just how toxic is slightly overripe fruit?
I don't know how to answer that question. Probably depends on what it is and just how slightly is slightly. What's happening when fruit is overripe, like this mame sapote, right? I mean, you can taste the alcohol. You can smell the alcohol. It's powerful. You can smell it. So remember, our bodies, our livers can metabolize small amounts of alcohol. Because as fruit eaters, we have to be able to do that. You might bite into something that's fermented. I mean, what if a tiny drop of alcohol killed you? Okay, it doesn't. Your body can metabolize some. But how much of that do you want to eat on purpose? I mean, it is killing cells. Alcohol kills human cells. So, when I bite into something fermented, it tastes bad, and I don't want any more. This kind of tomato, you don't want to put in the fridge. The cherry tomatoes, you can refrigerate. No problem. These lose their flavor, these don't.
You know the avocado variety where you can eat the skin?
I've had those. I don't remember what those are called. I don't know if we have them here or not. Again, honestly, we've planted so many things, it won't be until things, like I can give you a tour, but I can't identify all the trees because we have so many, I don't remember what they all are. Yeah?
Last one, does durian only grow in Thailand?
No, durian is native to Southeast Asia and grows in Thailand and Singapore and the Philippines and many other, Vietnam and Laos. And it will grow in Costa Rica. You can occasionally find durian in Costa Rica. Around here, it's impossible, like markets, farmers markets, you don't see it. There are some places in Costa Rica where you'll find more of it. We've planted probably 20 durian trees. I think we might have 3 or 4 left. They're very difficult to grow. They require very specific conditions, and it's not really optimal here. It's not hot enough, and it's not humid enough. So we're going to keep planting. Okay, hopefully next week we're going to have space for another 7,000 or 8,000 fruit trees. I'll plant 20 durian trees every year until we have hundreds of them. And when we have the big project, and we'll have land that's lower, 1,000 feet lower than we are here, and it's hotter and right next to the river, more humid, maybe they'll do better there. We're going to keep trying, trust me. I'm never going to give up on trying to grow durian, so we're going to keep trying. Do the oranges need to be yellow color before you eat them? No, not necessarily. You might be surprised. How many of you from the U.S.? Raise your hand from the U.S. So, did you know that oranges in the U.S. are dyed orange? They dye oranges orange to give them that uniform, beautiful orange color, because they're not always going to be that color. In order for an orange to turn orange, it needs cold. And here it doesn't get cold enough. So most of the oranges here are never going to be fully orange. Never. Just because it's not cold enough for that to happen. The oranges also need cold weather to make sugar. So if you're from California, if you're from the US or from Europe, and maybe Australia, there are places they probably grow good oranges too. It's probably not on the north coast. It's too hot there. Yeah, they're going to be someplace further south, right? In Florida, if you know Florida, Miami is down near the south part of the state. Orlando's in the center. The commercial orange groves are from Orlando up north, where they get frost. Down south, where they never get frost, or very rarely, the oranges aren't as sweet. Okay, so here, the oranges typically aren't as sweet. Some people love them. I don't really eat we have more oranges than anything else. I almost never eat them. They're just not sweet enough for me. Well, again, honestly, what you're buying in Toronto, I don't know. It might be a little different. I mean, here, as soon as all the way around, you can make an indentation. Like this part's actually too hard right now. The whole thing should be where I can gently push on it and indent the fruit. And if you can't do that, I wouldn't cut it open. It's too early to eat. Okay, but it doesn't have to go beyond that here. It might be different. In here, our bananas, when they look like these plantains look, they're pretty much ready to eat. Okay, whereas in North America, you'd want this to be covered with black spots. Those were picked too early and gassed to ripen, and that's what happens there. Here, when they look yellow like this, a little bit of spots, they're pretty much ready to eat. Not these, but bananas. Okay, so it might be a little different with what you're getting there. Anything else?
Would you ever have a meal of just tomatoes?
Would I ever have a meal of just tomatoes or tomatoes? I would have a meal of just tomatoes. I love tomatoes, even if I never say tomatoes. I would have a meal of them. I wouldn't do it very often because, again, I mean, typically, I don't eat very many meals, and I'm looking for calories when I eat. And tomatoes just don't have a lot of calories because there's very little fat and there's very little sugar, which are where calories come from. So they're not gonna give you. You have to eat a lot of them. I'd have to eat a lot of them to feel satisfied for a long time. Anybody have anything else? Was this useful? Was this helpful? March 1st to March 8th this year, we have our annual fruit festival. We'll have, last year we had more than 50 different organic fruits and amazing stuff. So, if you're interested in checking out some amazing fruits and having a great time, you might want to give that some thought. It's a lot of fun. We're here, but we're not fasting. We're actually eating several times a day and eating amazing stuff. And going to the beach and going to the waterfalls, having bonfires, and having live music and yoga classes. It's a good time. So that's March 1st to March 8th. The price is just about to go up. We have campsites. We have ranchitos still left. We have some regular rooms left. I think we might now have a cabaña left. And that's it. So different rates with different accommodations. If you're interested, talk to us about it, but it's a great time.